Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to another technical summary video presented by me, Letty Janse van Vuren. Our topic for today is the draft money laundering and terrorism financing control regulations that have been issued in terms of FICA. So let's go and have a look at what was involved in here and what this is all about. Obviously, we are in the money laundering sector, anti-money laundering legislation. So let's go and have a look at what the fuss is all about. As you can see, we're going to start off with why this is important. So I'm going to look at the relevance to us and our clients. I'm going to start with an introduction and going into section 30 of FICA, just so that we know what it is all about. I know we know that FICA exists, but we are not by long shot specialists in FICA. Not like we know the Tax Act and the VAT Act and things. So yeah, let's go and have a look at that. Then we're going to look at an overview of this actual publication of the draft control regulations that were issued by the National Treasury. And then I'm going to give you a bit of a summary on the most important aspects, just in a nutshell what this is all about. And then lastly, the links to the source documents are available to you if you want to go and download any of these. But let's go and look at my pictures, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. So National Treasury has issued these draft control regulations, and it relates to money laundering and terrorist financing. Right. So those are the two pictures, and this is all in terms of FICA. So yes, the draft control regulations are issued in terms of FICA, because there's a section in FICA that says the control regulations may be issued. So let's go and have a look what's changed. The abbreviations that I'll be using for today is FICA, which is the Financial Intelligence Center Act, FIC, which is the Financial Intelligence Center, and you'll remember they are the controlling body. They are gathering information on all the money laundering and anti-money laundering activities in South Africa. Right? They are basically just like the gossip mongers. They are everybody reports to them, and they will then take it further. So they cannot prosecute. They will then disseminate information further to whichever body needs to pursue a disciplinary action or whatever criminal action. ML is money laundering. TF, you'll find sometimes they talk about terrorism financing. Other times they talk about terrorist financing. Right, but I think the correct term is actually terrorism financing, because you're not just funding the person, you are funding the action, all right, or the act of terrorism. NT is National Treasury, and AML is anti-money laundering. So let's go and have a look why this is important. Well, we know that FICA is important because your clients have got to comply with FICA. If they don't, then you've got certain reporting obligations that kick in terms of NOCLAR being non-compliance with laws and regulations, and that might mean that you need to qualify an audit opinion, report a reportable irregularity, or just reporting it to management. You also always need to consider any amendments and regulations that are gazetted relating to FICA. Remember, FICA is one of the acts that directly affect your clients, and therefore directly affect your audit and your review and your assurance services that you provide. So specifically here we are talking about money laundering and terrorism financing control regulations. All your entities, your clients, specifically the ones that are accountable institutions, they have a duty to comply with the FIC Act. Okay, sometimes it's called the FIC Act, otherwise people call it FICA. Whatever you call it, same thing, you just spell it differently. So yes, even your accountable institutions, they have a legal obligation to be aware of all the amendments that have been gazetted. Right, and these draft control regulations are one of them. So this all follows South Africa's grey listing way back in 2022. Remember that we amended the acts and we put measures in place to be able to restore our status. Hopefully by next year, January 2025, our grey listing status will be removed and we will be back up to scratch. If you look at the original ML and TF control regulations, They essentially became effective last year on the 1st of Feb. It was all issued in, I think it was December 2022, and the effective date was February 2023. All that National Treasury has now done is they have now issued some draft amendments to these control regulations. And they've issued it for public comments, and they literally gave people 10 days, which is not enough. And that always says to me, you know what, this is something that's coming from above. They don't really give people enough time to comment, which means that it doesn't really matter what the comments are. They are just going to do whatever they want and change the control regulations. So, and I think that's exactly what's happened. But it hasn't been issued finally. It still is available only in draft format, the amendments. So yeah, as soon as it comes out, we'll know that it's there, but then at least we'll know what it's all about at that stage. So let's go and have a look. These draft amendments have been issued, and they are aimed at what? Strengthening the country's financial system to improve its resilience against abuse by money launderers and terrorist financiers. In a nutshell, it's because we were grey-listed that they said, listen, your system, South Africa, regarding money laundering and terrorist financing is not up to scratch. It's not where it should be. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of money laundering that takes place. Remember, because money laundering is when you take money that was earned from illegal activities, and we have in excess of 400 odd acts in South Africa. So any contravention of any of those acts that leads to proceeds could lead to money laundering, okay, because those are ill-begotten gains as a result of unlawful activity. So all of that, and that's why these regulations came out. The one major amendment that came about with these draft control regulations is regarding Section 30. Section 30 provides that there's a very specific requirement for you to report on the conveyance of cash or bearer negotiable instruments into or out of the Republic. So who needs to report? Well, the person making the conveyance. And who do they report to? To the FIC. So that's what Section 30 says. In the past, there have been other items that have always been reported to FIC traditionally. Okay? Section 30 of FICA says the following, and as you can see, we are dealing with cash and we are dealing with bearer negotiable instruments. So here you'll be able to recognize Bitcoin. There's also Ethereum, there's Litecoin, there's Zcash. All of these cryptocurrencies are seen as bearer negotiable instruments. So yeah, that's why Section 30 was brought in, is to now make sure that the cross-border movement of the cash and the bearer negotiable instruments is reported to FIC. They currently receive reports on cross-border electronic fund transfers. In terms of Section 31, it's always been there, all right? In addition to that, they are also receiving reports on large cash transactions, which is Section 28 of FICA, which is our cash transaction threshold reporting, CTR, and that is all transactions in excess of 50,000, okay? Suspicious or unusual transactions are reported to FIC in terms of Section 29, and if there's any property that is linked into targeted financial sanctions, Section 28A, so in other words, property or anything that is linked into terrorism activity, that also is reported. On the next slide, I've given you a quick little summary of that. But it's critical now, in order for FIC to be effective as an operation, that they are aware of the financial flows across our borders, what's coming into South Africa, what's going out, not just in terms of EFTs, because people are carrying a lot of cash across the borders. So this has now all been expanded to include cross-border movement of cash and bearer negotiable instruments. So not just EFTs in terms of Section 31, but Section 30 is now strengthened. Right. And this will enable FIC to actually detect possible suspicious or unusual activity so that they can then move it onto the prosecuting authorities. The existing reporting obligations of AIs, which is accountable institutions, to FIC, is, like we just said, Section 28, which is our cash transactions above the prescribed limits of 50,000. Section 28A, property associated with terrorist and related activities, and suspicious and unusual transactions, Section 29. So that's what FIC currently says. This is all Section 3 of FIC. Now, this includes cash conveyance reports. Cash conveyance reports is specifically now Section 23. Section 23 is required by Section 30. Section 30 says you must report to FIC. Section 23 says you must do a CCR, a cash conveyance report. So the overview of the actual draft regulations look like this. That's what the cover page looks like. Yes, it is still in draft format. Only 11 pages, not a lot, but the regulations are made in terms of Section 77 of FICA, and the major amendment that I told you is cash conveyance reporting, and there you can see that little man's carrying a lot of cash. So let's go and have a look at the next slide for the most important amendment, which is on cash conveyance reporting. So the proposed draft regulations now says that there is a threshold amount under Section 30. If you are conveying cash or bearer negotiable instruments into or out of South Africa that is more than 25,000 or 25,000 Rand and more, then that triggers a report in terms of Section 30, and that will then need to happen. Okay. Also, the draft regulations say once that report needs to happen, there is certain information that must be included in that report, and they also specify who is the person that is authorized to receive that report under Section 30 of the Act. So in a nutshell, this is my in a nutshell summary. This means that persons who convey 25,000 Rand or more in terms of cash or bearer negotiable instruments into or out of the Republic, they will be required to report this under Section 30 of FICA. So now, people that are smuggling illegal proceeds, they are carrying like literally like this, purses full of cash and bearer instruments and cards and bitcoins and whatnot. The bitcoins they've got a Bitcoin wallet, but the wallet doesn't physically have all the coins in. Not physically, it's cryptocurrency. Okay, so if you understand how that function works, but they do still convey it above and over the borders. So yeah, so let's go and have a look. The actual contents of all the control regulations, there are 8 sections. Number 1 is definitions. 2 deals with the amendment of Regulation 1. Now, Regulation 1 deals with who is an authorized official and the term of a cash conveyance report, or CCR as I call it. Right, who is an authorized official? Anybody that can basically know about it, they are an authorized official. They have inserted Regulation 21A. There's an amendment of Regulation 23, 22, and the most important one is here. Insertion of Regulation 23F and 23G. Now, 23F says that there's a prescribed amount, which is the 25 grand, and 23G says what information needs to be included to whom? To the authorized official. It must be done within 2 days, and if you don't submit it, it is an offense. All right. So yes, the draft regulations are not yet effective because obviously we're waiting for the president to find his pen and sign this one as well. The source documents that are available to you is the actual explanatory memo, which is the draft and control regulations there. And then I found a very nice media statement, which is like a 2-page summary written in proper English as to what they've changed. Right, so there are the links to that. I trust that you enjoyed this short little power trip on the document with me. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and goodbye.